evening and welcome to our show, Going Public. I'm Renee Fossica, and joining us tonight are Emily Tuttle and Aaron Boudreau, the Terrebonne Parish 2023 Elementary and High School Teachers of the Year. I want to thank you guys for joining us tonight, taking time out of your day. Congratulations on your honor.
Thank you for having us.
Unfortunately, Raquel Ray, the Middle School Teacher of the Year, was unable to attend, but she did send in several statements to be read. Miss Raquel was asked, how do you feel about earning the title of Teacher of the Year? She stated, I have been in absolute awe and I cried quite a few times in disbelief. It was definitely a goal of mine since day one. Although I never imagined winning for the middle school category, I have come so far since my first year only 5 years ago, and this will only push me to further improve even more as an educator. When asked, what is the best thing about your job as an educator? Ms. Ray stated, my students, they are the number one when it comes to my job as an educator. I love watching them grow throughout the year. They become so much more confident, and I love getting to be a part behind that. By the end of the year, it truly feels like we are a family in my classroom. I save every little thing they write me and still have all the notes from my first year. I am so eager to see all of the wonderful things they will accomplish. When asked, if you could instill one thing in your students that they'll carry with them for the rest of their lives, what would it be? I always tell my students that they have a choice each day, whether it be positive or negative. Many students don't have the best home life, and it's important to let them know that they can choose to have a better future for themselves. They can self-motivate and succeed, no matter what they see or what others may tell them. And when asked, did you love school this much when you were a student? Miss Ray said, no, I was terrified of school. I remember the principal at Coteau Bayou Blue having to come personally get me out of the car for my first day of kindergarten. Even later, I was always shy and never wanted to participate because I was so afraid. I share this with my students all the time because the kid me relates to them so much. I'm glad I'm able to show them that I persevered through all of my anxieties and am now their teacher. I think it's so important that the students see our weaknesses and failures and also see the success that comes after if we never give up. I want to thank you, Ms. Ray, for submitting your statements and congratulate you for earning the Middle School Teacher of the Year. Now with us tonight, we have Miss Emily Tuttle, who is a teacher at Village East Elementary. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what has led you to teaching?
Yes, ma'am. I'm from South Louisiana, lived here all my life, graduated from Vanderbilt Catholic High School. Then I went to Northwestern State University, where I received a degree in musical theater. So I kind of took the untraveled path to teaching, not the normal traditional way. But I would say that the reason I became a teacher would probably be because God led me here. Like I said, it wasn't in my original plans, although I've always had a heart for children. But I got into teaching about 7 years ago. I became an inclusion teacher at first. Then I became certified and became a regular classroom teacher 6 years ago.
And what grades do you currently teach?
I teach third grade math.
Third grade math, so totally opposite than music.
Definitely, but we sing and dance in class. We make it fun.
So speaking of making it fun, what is your teaching philosophy?
I have kind of a twofold teaching philosophy. The first part of it would be that if you can capture their hearts, you will capture their minds. I really believe in building relationships with my students. I believe that most children are going to succeed and work best in an environment where they feel loved and safe. So my first goal is always to forge lasting relationships with them. And then, like I said, the musical theater degree definitely comes into play in keeping them engaged, having fun, laughter, song, and dance. We like to be silly.
And how do you maintain your class environment? How do you keep your students engaged all the time? Are you constantly being creative?
Yes, ma'am. Silliness. They're kind of always watching me because they never know what antics are going to come next. And I really rely on the theater actually to keep them on their toes and engaged.
And since the storm, I know this year has been definitely a hectic year in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been able to help your students with your teaching philosophies?
I was actually able to help my students in a way that I never imagined I would be able to. After the hurricane, I witnessed the devastation that their neighborhoods received, and that they weren't getting a lot of help instantly. So through the power of social media, I raised over $3,500 and got donations from all over the place from Texas, and was able to actually set up a delivery service. And we walked to their front doorsteps with donations and delivered it to their front doorsteps.
Oh, that is very sweet. That is awesome.
Thank you.
And so I'm sure your students appreciated that, and they were happy to see you after the storm.
That was definitely probably one of the best moments I've ever had as a teacher, was them seeing their teacher, their principal, walk up with cases of water, the looks on their faces.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was fixing to ask, what is the best part of teaching? But I know that's one of your best moments.
That's definitely one of the best moments, yes,
What
ma'am.
other moments have you had that have been your favorite parts of teaching?
Just daily success, when you see the light bulbs go off, when you see all the hard work that you've done and that they've done, and then they just finally get it. Student growth, that's the best part.
And then what are some of your favorite pastimes or your favorite memories of your students since you've been teaching? I know you said this is your seventh
Year, yes,
seventh
ma'am.
year. So what are your favorite memories?
Oh, there's so many. One of my favorite things is that I still get to hear from students who I've taught years ago. I recently got an email from a little girl. I taught her when she was in 5th grade, and now she's in 10th grade. And, you know, she was just thinking about me. So that's really cool that they still want to connect with you even after they're gone from your room.
And what lesson would you like your students to carry on with them after you leave your classroom at the end of the year?
Something I always say in class is that you can do hard things. I want them to know that they can accomplish whatever they put their mind to, that failure is part of it. You will fail, you will fall down, but that's not what defines you. It's getting up and trying again that makes us great.
And to any incoming teachers that may want to become an educator, what advice would you give to them?
To breathe. You'll get there. It's not something that happens overnight that you're going to have it all under control. It's a learning process, definitely, but we need really good educators, so join us.
Join us, yes, definitely. This year, I know we talked about the hurricane for a second. We've had several obstacles. Last year, we've had the pandemic. What were some of the obstacles that you've seen because of the pandemic and now because of the hurricane?
I guess I would say student absences. Just the fact that sometimes they're not here, or they'll show up 2 weeks later, and then you're trying to catch them up and fill in these gaps. But honestly, this year has been pretty smooth at Village East, considering what seems to be chaos around us sometimes.
And I know at Village East, you guys are sharing a campus. Is that correct?
That is, yes, ma'am.
And how have your students adjusted to having other students on campus?
It really hasn't changed much. Our schedules are a little bit different. They get to school a little bit earlier than us. They leave a little bit earlier, but they're around the same age group as the students that I teach as well, so it's been very easy.
And what can you share about the educational system that if you had one thing that you can change, what would that be?
Oh, just one thing? I guess that students would not be put into the next grade if they're not ready.
If they're not ready. Do you see,
Correct.
right now, because of the pandemic, have you noticed a lot of students that are missing, that are, that gap, that learning gap
Yes,
that's been
yes.
created?
I guess that it kind of goes hand in hand with the absences. There are gaps. I mean, if you miss weeks of education, learning time, then you're going to be having some gaps. So I guess that would be something that's a challenge.
And how can we make up for those gaps that these students may be having? What are you doing in your classroom to fill the gaps?
I mean, we, before they're eating breakfast and they're at my back table and we're going over, addition facts and multiplication facts. I can guarantee you that, especially, I know all I can do is speak for Village East, but the teachers are relentless in their pursuit of filling in the gaps.
And then at Village East, do you guys do any kind of extra reading or math fluency facts in the morning? I know you said during breakfast. Do y'all do it at any other times that the whole school participates in this?
We have a whole school RTI time, yes, ma'am, in the morning. That's what I was talking about with the breakfast. But in every single one of my classes, when they come in, that's part of their getting ready routine is to do fact practice.
And that helps out. I know when I get to Miss Erin, I'm sure she'll probably say the same thing. What they learn early on, they're going to carry with them throughout their
Absolutely.
years.
Yes, ma'am.
Up next, we have Miss Erin Boudreau, who is a teacher at Terrebonne High School. Thank you and congratulations, Erin.
Thank you.
So let's get started with your questions. What inspires you as a high school teacher?
As a high school teacher, I would say what inspires me most is watching students teach other students. When they get into high school, it's kind of a whole new world of learning and exploring as freshmen and growing up into seniors. And so in the classroom, it's really interesting to see, like, when a student masters a skill and they're able to help their peer kind of learn the skill and kind of teach them through that, but also in clubs and organizations and in sports. When you see these underclassmen kind of learning from their senior leaders and their junior leaders, and they're kind of molding them. And so watching young seniors and junior leaders molding those underclassmen through our, different extracurricular activities and in our sports, it's really inspiring to me, because it just shows that they're ready to kind of, this is their time, this is their year, this is their community. And so it just inspires me to keep going and to want to teach more, seeing how they are translating that learning into their peers.
And what is some of the best advice that you have received in relation to teaching?
I'd say the best advice that I've received in relation to teaching is to teach with love, to show compassion to those students who need it, or all students, honestly. Our students come in from many different backgrounds, and we don't really know the struggles that they're going through. And so especially with the pandemic and the aftermath of a storm, that we are teaching them responsibility, and we're going to stick to our strict deadlines, and we're going to teach them the rules and how you're going to, these are things that you need to learn to be productive members of society, but also give them that compassion and kind of just lean with them and learn with them and show them that you're there for them. So the best advice that I've ever received is just to teach with love and always give those students a little bit of grace, because even as teachers and adults, we need grace, and we need them to kind of come to us and give us a little bit of leeway sometimes. And so it's definitely a give and take, but to teach with love, I feel like, is the best way to just foster those relationships with students and just kind of show them that we're here for you. And it definitely engages them in a different way and helps them to do better in your classroom, become more successful.
And why did you decide to get into education?
So I've always, even as a child, I've always wanted to be a teacher. I have 4 sisters, and we would play school, and I always kind of was led to leading the classroom, or kind of drawn towards leading the classroom. So I always knew that I wanted to be a teacher. Whenever I got into high school as a student, I was a student at South Terrebonne High School, and South Terrebonne has a very strong community. All of our South Terrebonne graduates out there know that you are part of something. You're a part of this Gator Nation. You're a part of this community once you become a student at South Terrebonne. And so I definitely wanted to be able to give that to other students. And so that definitely led me into my choice of deciding to become a high school teacher. I've also always really loved math. And in high school, I had the best math teachers. And so they kind of just fostered more of a love or a passion for leading a classroom. And so my goal, or what kind of led me towards wanting to really become a high school teacher specifically, was wanting to try to create this same environment for students now. And so giving them a school to be a part of, that they want to be a part of, and kind of teaching them that building this community as a school is something that will translate for you in the future. And so whenever you're out of high school, you can create your own community and your own, like, getting involved in different organizations in the community and just doing things that in school you think, oh, I'm part of student council, or I'm on the soccer team. But whenever you graduate and you become part of the, Kiwanis Club, or you're giving back, and you're really creating a new atmosphere. So for me, what led me towards teaching was knowing that I could create an atmosphere for students to go out and really, like, help them learn what to do after high school. And so I wanted to be able to foster that for them.
And as an educator, what do you hope to achieve?
I would say, and I guess I'm kind of repetitive, but building leaders is I'm student council advisor. I'm very passionate about student council. My biggest thing is trying to help students realize that they have their own voice. they can be leaders in the community, they can be leaders in the classroom, they can be leaders in the workforce. So trying to foster that everyone has the capacity to lead is really what I'm probably most passionate and what my students to kind of go forth and remember as they go on after high school. So whether it's leading a construction company or becoming an engineer or leading in a surgical medical field or something like that, that no matter where you are, you have the capacity to lead. And so that's really, I would say, what I would most want to instill or leave as a mark as an educator for my students.
And how do you make your connections to keep your students engaged?
So I picked up a tip from one of our administrators at Terrebonne High, Mr. Troy Winninger, and I drop in his name, that he reads all of our students' ID tags. And so he uses that to kind of learn every student's name. He thinks it's very important as an administrator to know every student on campus. I think that's amazing, and I think it's also very important. And so my duty for lunch is that I'm the person who lets the kids into the lunch line for the cafeteria. So as they come into the cafeteria, I read their ID tags. And so I start to remember their names, and then I'll see them in the hall, and I'll be like, oh, hey, and I'll say their name instead of just telling them hello. And they kind of, look at me at first like, you're not even my teacher. How do you know my name? And then they realize, oh, okay, well, I see her in the lunch line. I know who she is. And so we kind of we build relationships outside of the classroom before some of these students are even in my classroom or even my students. And then whenever they do end up in my classroom, they already kind of have a relationship with me or a feel of my personality. And so then I'm able to learn a little bit more about them. And even if you just kind of get a little bit of information from students about their personal life, then they start to buy in to you as a teacher. And if they respect you as a teacher, they want to kind of please the atmosphere of learning. They want to support the atmosphere of learning. They want the lesson to go well. They want things to go smoothly because they know that they're kind of working for you. They're working with you, and because they know that you're invested in them. So learning their names outside of the classroom, learning a little bit of information about them once they're in the classroom, just kind of builds these relationships, and it helps everything else go more smoothly, and it ensures better success for the students because they're ready to work. They want to learn, they want to be focused, and then they become more successful that way.
And what do you think is the best part of teaching?
The best part of teaching, in my opinion, I teach higher level math, so pre-calculus and calculus right now. I also teach algebra too, but those higher level maths are very much a productive struggle. And the skills that we kind of teach the students are like, well, when am I ever going to really learn this in real life? And I kind of respond to them sometime like, well, this is your real life today, and we're learning it and we're using it today. But more than understanding the skill of logarithmic functions or something like that, what's more important is learning a process and teaching mathematical logic, because that logic will translate into all of their other aspects of their life. And so they can learn a process of building a skill that they'll be able to apply when they're on their workforce, when they're doing a job, or they have a task that they have to complete for a special, project outside of high school. So for me, I would say that just that productive struggle and then seeing success. It's that light bulb, it's that aha moment that they get at the end. But just learning the logic and going through that struggle teaches them so much more about themselves than the actual math. I can persist, I can do this, I can do hard things.
You can do hard things, absolutely.
So it's definitely just that productive struggle is the most rewarding thing to see, and then the student achievement at the end, they just learn so much more than math facts and math skills.
And I know over the last couple of years, we've had a pandemic, we've had a hurricane. What are some of the challenges that you face in your classroom?
So with the pandemic, the big thing that we faced was attendance. And like Emily had referenced that earlier, the attendance was it's just hard. Kids are being forced to quarantine, or they're sick, so they have to, or they were close contacts, so they have to, and they're just out. And so again, my classes are extremely rigorous, and I even have a poster in my classroom, and it says, miss a day, miss a lot. and my students know that in my classroom this is true. So to kind of overcome the hurdle of attendance being an issue, I started to record my daily lessons. And so I have it's a screencast, it's called Loom, and it screencasts my board, and as I write on my Promethean board, my handwriting comes up, they can hear my voices, they can hear their classmates' voices, the questions that's being asked, and they can watch the lesson. I post it in my classroom daily, I post it in my Google Classroom daily, so they have that access every single day to watch the live lesson and catch up on what they were missing. For high school, it's a huge benefit because they have their own Chromebooks, they have access to what they need, and they can get to those lessons. And so that's really been the biggest thing that's helped me overcome the challenges with the pandemic and with the aftermath of the storm and attendance.
Well, I want to thank you once again for joining us tonight and congratulate you both on being Teacher of the Year. Good luck with your state Teacher of the Year selection process. And I would like to thank you, our viewers, for watching. Don't forget to join us every Tuesday on Going Public. Good night.
Thank you.